This episode of the Sledgehammer Wrestling Show is brought to you by BarkBox. Check out our exclusive offer now at barkbox.com/sledgehammertv and get your free box on me with any multi-month plan. Every single month, high-quality toys and healthy, delicious snacks delivered to your door. BarkBox is absolutely great. Laszlo loves it. Laszlo's my little pup you see there hovering over his BarkBox. We're waiting for the September box right now. You can get yours. barkbox.com/sledgehammertv. Check it out right now. Hey yo, and what is up, gang? Welcome to Saturday Night Sledgehammer, the live streaming show where we are here not to talk about any specific WWE piece of trash offering. We're here to talk about whatever it is I feel like talking about, and whatever it is you guys feel like talking about, as we are going to get to the chat and focus in on you guys in just a couple of minutes. But there are a few hot topics that we are going to get to today. Firstly, my history with Madison Square Garden and why being there last night for Super SmackDown was a little bit extra special for me. We're going to touch upon that a little bit. We're going to talk about the Zelina Vega controversy and how everybody's kind of up in arms that they didn't have her on the September 11th tribute show for SmackDown. We're going to touch upon that as well. And we are also going to talk about some of the things I seen at Madison Square Garden last night that you guys didn't get to see. We're going to talk about the dark matches and some of the in-between segments and so much more. And let's kick things off right now talking about Madison Square Garden in and of itself. The unofficial home of the WWE. It has been the one place throughout the history of World Wrestling Entertainment, or the WWF, the World Wrestling Federation for us old-timers, that is undoubtedly the place where something big is going to happen. This is the place where Hulk Hogan beat the Iron Sheik, giving birth to WrestleMania. This is the place of the first ever WrestleMania and a couple subsequent WrestleManias and many pay-per-views after the fact. All of the times that I have been at Madison Square Garden, there has always been something epic, something amazing, and it's the world's greatest arena for a reason. Not just because it's in New York City, my hometown, but because it just holds such history and such a special place in the hearts of many, especially when it comes to professional wrestling. Some of my personal history with the WWE and Madison Square Garden dates back to when I was just a wee little lad in my early teen years, maybe like 10 years old, 11 years old. The first show I ever went to at Madison Square Garden was the 1991 SummerSlam, where we had the match made in heaven and the match made in hell. I was there as the Macho Man Randy Savage and Elizabeth got married. I remember catching the confetti and putting it in a frame when I got home because I was psychotic about wrestling even as a tiny young man. I was also at a random house show that my dad just happened to take me to, where the main event on that card was Randy Savage versus Ric Flair, and it's something that I will never forget being in the audience for. It was absolutely fantastic. In 1994, things start to kind of pick up the pace because I'm a senior in high school, I have a job, I'm making my own money, and I'm buying tickets for myself, and I was at a couple of very important house shows, one being when Big Daddy Cool Diesel showed up as the surprise opponent for the World Wrestling Federation champion Bob Backlund and kicked his ass and took the championship belt, and I was there and I was freaking out like the little tiny mark I was for Diesel, even though he was a trash wrestler back in those days. And pretty much throughout all of his days, I can say whatever I want about Kevin Nash right now. As much as I love and respect the guy, he blocked me on Twitter, so I don't give a damn. I'm sure he's not going to hear what I have to say anyway. I was also there for the 1994 WrestleMania 10 event. I was in the stands to see that epic ladder match between Shawn Michaels and Razor Ramon. I seen Bret Hart end up winning and claiming the WWF Championship from Yokozuna after losing the opening match in what was probably the best wrestling match many of us has ever seen versus his brother Owen. Fantastic night. WrestleMania 10, one of the best WrestleManias of all time. The 1996 Curtain Call event, I was there for that. That was actually a night that I snuck into Madison Square Garden. You see, me and my buddy Stuart was a very big Jeff Jarrett fan. We concocted a plan to get me in. See, because Stuart and his friends, they already had tickets, and I wanted to go. So he figured, let's come up with a little gig, right? So he goes in with his friends, with all the ticket stubs. Ticket stubs is a thing of the past. It's not something they do anymore, and you could never get away with this nowadays. But fortunately, I did. My buddy went in with his friends. He came out of the arena telling the security guard, oh my god, I have to go to my car, I forgot my wallet, blah blah blah. He goes out to his car, which was me, standing outside. He had another one of his friend's ticket stubs in his pocket, and we both entered as if we both left the arena. I got in, no problem. I was nervous as shit. I remember I was scared as fuck. Like, I was going all in, man. If I got caught, I was going to jail. But it was worth it, because I got in, and I just kind of traipsed around Madison Square Garden over and over again, because I didn't have a seat. Kind of finding an empty seat here and there, but mostly just walking around and round in circles, while the curtain call happened before my eyes at the end of that show. My history goes on even more. From there, I was at the 1996 Survivor Series. Speaking about walking around and around Madison Square Garden, I actually worked there for a short time in early 1997, or late 1997. It was around September, and I was in attendance as a popcorn vendor, walking around going, get your popcorn, get your fucking popcorn over here. And I had to buy the popcorn from Madison Square Garden with my own money, and then go out there and sell it to the people and make my money back. And there was a little bit of a profit margin, but you don't make fucking money selling popcorn. You think I'm gonna sell a lot of popcorn unless you came with a bunch of kids? I ain't making money on popcorn. And back in the 90s, in that part of the Attitude Era, there wasn't many kids in the audience, and nobody was buying fucking popcorn. If you were the beer man, you walked out with your pockets full and everything. But I was the popcorn guy, so I wasn't making any money. So I sat down in a seat, and I took my MSG uniform shirt off, and I ate some of my popcorn, and I watched the debut of Cactus Jack when he came and confronted Triple H on Monday Night Raw. It was also the night, I believe, maybe it was the first time Vince McMahon was stunned by Stone Cold Steve Austin. It was a magical night. I had no business being there. I was supposed to be working, but instead I was sitting in the stands. I was popping popcorn, getting fucking thirsty, because I couldn't go and buy soda now from the soda guy, because he's gonna know, like, hey, this guy's fucking watching the show, he's not working. And I would have been like, what does it matter to you? I spend all this fucking money on popcorn, and now I gotta eat it all. Just give me a goddamn soda, I'm thirsty. That exchange didn't happen. We're just having fun here with that. But I was actually there that night to see Cactus's debut. I was at the 2002 Survivor Series with my best friend Scott, who is no longer with us. Rest in peace, pal. We had a great night that night as the Elimination Chamber was used for the first time. Great night there that night. I would then be in Madison Square Garden for the 2013 Hall of Fame ceremony, highlighted by the induction of the great Bruno Sammartino, and I took great pride being there that night, because my grandparents, being the Italian Americans that they were huge Bruno Sammartino fans, and to be there that night and represent both of them in Madison Square Garden, saluting their hero as he was inducted in the Hall of Fame. Magic. See, wrestling can produce magic in a person's life when it's done right, and you can have fun and have these moments that will live with you forever and ever and ever. I was also there for Hulk Hogan Appreciation Night. Now, don't bust my balls, all right? Now, regardless how you feel about Hulk Hogan, his legacy as it pertains to the world of professional wrestling is not something that could be ignored nor forgotten. And maybe we shouldn't be celebrating it nowadays, but back in 2015, he wasn't a bad guy just yet, and we had this big ceremony at Madison Square Garden, and being a Hogan fan, as I was growing up during the age of Hulkamania, and still sometimes getting a little bit teary-eyed when Real American hits during a special show of the WWE nowadays, even though he's kind of a piece of trash as a personal guy, you know, he's always going to be that Hulk Hogan to me as well, and it's going to elicit these emotions. And I was there for this night, and it was a lot of fun. And the last thing I did at Madison Square Garden before SmackDown last night was I attended the G1 Supercard, G1 Climax, whatever name it was, when they did New Japan's debut in Madison Square Garden. It's not something I'm proud of. Okay, now I'm not really a New Japan guy. I really only did it to be part of a historic moment. It is very, very, extremely rare for any wrestling promotion anywhere to be able to run Madison Square Garden Vince was kind of on the outs with the Garden at the time. New Japan snuck their way in, and I wanted to be there. I thought it was going to be a good night, but I was surrounded by these indie New Japan fans that just hate the WWE so much, yet they cheered and got all fucking happy when Enzo Amore showed up. Like, why, out of everybody in the WWE, would you even cheer this guy? Such New Japan purists. And then I watched all these matches where everybody just super kicked each other in the face 1,000 times. It was cool to see the Bullet Club live and all of that, but all of that doesn't even matter anymore, right? With AEW being a thing now, New Japan, I don't know anything that's really going on over there, nor do I really care all that much. So it felt even extra special to me to finally get back in the Garden last night, sit there for the WWE's Super SmackDown, to get that stink of New Japan off my back. I didn't want that to be the last thing I attended, wrestling-wise, at Madison Square Garden, and I was able to fulfill that dream last night. Another reason why this night was so special to me was obviously being from New York and figuring out what day it is today. Obviously, yesterday was the night before the 20th anniversary of the September 11th attacks. Now, if you watch the SmackDown review that I posted earlier today, you know we already kind of touched upon this a little bit, but it needs to be said and it needs to be talked about again, because one thing that we shouldn't do is ever forget about what happened that day. It was something that forever changed the very fabric of how we live our lives. And it's important to never forget. It's important to pay tribute and to celebrate the lives that were lost. It's a hard thing to talk about because nowadays the line is so thin. You could say something and mean it in such a positive way and it'll come off and somebody will be offended by it. So it's kind of hard to talk about these things, at least in a genuine and honest way nowadays. But being that even right now I think it's still September the 11th, we may be approaching midnight as we speak. But I almost was involved in all of this. A little personal story again before we get to the next topic. It'll kind of bleed its way into it naturally. Segue incoming. But I would have been working in the World Trade Center on that day. I was a temp at the time. I was doing temp work and I had a short-term contract with Deutsche Bank. It's a terrible name. I used to call it Douche Bank because, you know, that's what it sounded like, but it wasn't douche. It looked like it said douche, but you pronounced it Deutsche. I think it was Dutch or German or something. I don't even remember. Anyway, they were a financial place and I was doing data entry, and they had multiple offices in downtown, and I was working for a couple of weeks out of one office, but I was scheduled to go to their office in the World Trade Center for the next 2 weeks on the shift. And strangely enough, the Sunday before September 11th, which was a Tuesday back 20 years ago, I was at a family party and my grandpa looked kind of weird to us and we were all kind of concerned. And when he went home that night, he ended up being taken to the hospital. And the doctors called everybody and told us that my grandfather probably wasn't going to make it until morning. So we all rushed out to New Jersey, out to this hospital, and ended up staying there now for the whole entirety of Sunday night throughout Monday and Monday evening. My mother decided to go home because he was kind of out of the woods and touch and go, but I stayed behind with my aunt and we were going to stay a couple of days. I called out from my shift at the temp agency, and then Tuesday morning I was awoken by the sounds of my grandmother screaming her head off. And if you're asleep and your grandpa's in the hospital and they told you he's practically near death and it's like 9:30 in the morning and your grandma's screaming throughout the house after the phone just rang, what do you think I'm thinking? I'm thinking the absolute worst, and my heart is absolutely dropping because I think Grandpa has left us and went on to heaven. Fortunately for me, in that moment, it wasn't that, but unfortunately for the rest of us unfortunately for me and everybody else in the world as well, it was because her sister had called to tell her to turn on the television, and we watched September 11th unfold. I was kind of taken back and in a shock by it after it was all said and done, just knowing that I was supposed to be on the 38th floor of the second tower in the Deutsche Bank offices, if I'm remembering that correctly. And me being me, I know that had I been down there and even had the chance to get out of the building, that I probably would have stuck around just out of curiosity, maybe possibly even try to help where I may have been able to, but I have no training or anything that would have been valuable, but I would have been curious enough to have been standing around watching the smoke like many of the people you see on some of the documentary footage and the historical news footage that's been playing all week long. So who knows what would have happened to me. My fate could have been completely different had it not been for a very close call with my grandpa, which I was very grateful for him to him after the fact, because he would go on to live for another 10 years before he would pass away. So sometimes things happen for a reason, right? Talk about the roller coaster ride of life. Some of these moments you will never forget. 9/11, many of us have our own personal stories and reasons why you won't forget it. But unfortunately, let's get to the hot topic of this evening. The WWE forgot. They're sitting there all night telling you not to forget, but they very much forgot to include Zelina Vega in SmackDown last night. Now, this, all in all, is not really a big deal. The card is always subject to change. Matches get moved and removed all the time, and it's no real big deal that this was cut from a SmackDown show. It's getting way more attention because of the fact that it was Zelina Vega's match that got cut. And the match that was pulled from SmackDown last night was supposed to be Carmella and Zelina Vega taking on Liv Morgan and Toni Storm, who we all thought the WWE forgot about because she hasn't been on SmackDown other than flirting with Dolph Ziggler for some strange reason. And I'm not complaining about not having to see Carmella. Nobody wants to see Carmella anyway. But taking this match off the card was kind of wrong. It was kind of a dick move. And they might not have done it intentionally to screw her over. But what this really shows is an overall problem with the WWE in general. Because think about this, guys. And you agree with me if you want, or let me know if you agree with me in the comments or in the chat. The fact is, this company is so out of touch with what's going on with their roster and in the world that it's not unbelievable to see how they would screw this up so much, because they screw things up all the time. But it's scary to me to see just how much of a shit show the WWE really is. And I say that because the WWE, you know, if this were 10 years ago, or let's not put a year on it, let's just say the WWE, if they were firing on all cylinders and were working the way they should have, Zelina Vega would have been a very central focus of last night's episode. There would have been vignettes. There probably would have been an interview segment where she could have told her story. They might have done it in multiple increments so we could have heard from her throughout the night. They would have done the right thing. They would have given her a match. They might not have even put it on during the actual show, but at the very least they would have put it on a dark segment or something like that, which is what they could have done as well here. And you see, now if you don't know why this is really such a big deal, well, that's because Zelina Vega's real name is Thea Trinidad. And Zelina Vega lost her father, Michael Trinidad, who was a telecommunications analyst at a firm called Cantor Fitzgerald in the World Trade Center. He lost his life as a result of the terrorist attacks. So you would think that the WWE, if they were in the right mind and they knew what they were doing, you would think they would take the superstar on their roster who is a victim of 9/11 and have her be part of a show that had multiple tributes to 9/11, 24 hours before the day before the 20th anniversary of 9/11. Like, they would have been all over it. They would have been shoving it down our throats to the point where I might have been sitting on the review going, oh my god, they really did maybe a little too much. That's WWE's MO. But to forget her altogether, to have a planned segment and then take it off the show due to time constraints, that's rough. That's rough. And why it's even rougher for me kind of can segue us into the next portion as well, and it's because the dark matches were fucking terrible. And the dark matches, for the most part, were terrible because they were being represented by superstars from Monday Night Raw. You see, my night at Madison Square Garden began with Rhea Ripley coming out to have a one-on-one matchup with Charlotte Flair. The Dark Open, as they would call it. Man, you want to talk about dark. I was in a very dark place. I had to see Rhea the No One Ripley, and she was going to take on Charlotte Flair. Do I got to pull up a rematch alert in this bitch? I certainly don't want to, but there I was, live, and while admittedly the action between the two ladies was okay, I was fine with it, really. But when the show was over and it dawned upon me that they cut the women's match from the show, then it made it harder to swallow that you gave me a Raw women's match as the dark match, when that very clearly could have been a great way to open the show with Zelina Vega. On the flip side, the dark main event was a 6-man tag team matchup. You had John Cena and the Mysterios versus the Bloodline, which I didn't really care. It was just there to get John Cena in Madison Square Garden, or an excuse to get him in there to pop the crowd. I knew he was going to show up eventually because his merchandise was fucking everywhere. There wasn't a Charlotte Flair shirt or anything to be found, so Charlotte being there absolutely took me by surprise. But, you know, they could have had Zelina's moment on either end of the show if you didn't want to put it on during the 8 to 10 hour. It could have been the last thing you did. At the very least, you could have produced an interview segment where she could have talked about her father and her memories. Even TNA was classy enough to do that for her when she was wrestling for them 10 years ago on the 10th anniversary. But here we are in New York City, in her hometown, with the opportunity to give her a moment to make her feel special, maybe give her an opportunity to talk about her dad to the WWE Universe. I know she was in the World Trade Center early in the morning. She goes every year to pay tribute to her father, and I'm sure that's good enough for her. She's able to speak her truth. She's able to be Thea Trinidad, and she doesn't have to be Zelina Vega. But I think it would be nice if the place that you worked for showed you enough respect to be part of that. You would think a match like, or any match for her, whether it be a singles match or that ridiculous tag match, should have taken precedent over something like a 10-man tag team match of bullshit, or a mediocre tag team main event that had me watching Montez Ford playing with his butt cheeks more than actually watching wrestling. I don't know. Especially with the 20th anniversary being this year, it was just a real epic fail. And yeah, I know, at the end of the day, it's not really a big deal. A wrestler's match got taken off from a card. What's the big deal? The big deal is that it really shows just how fucked up the WWE is right now. That they don't have empathy, they don't have compassion for their superstars. They should have taken the opportunity to make sure Zelina Vega was on this card. And at the very, very least, they could have given her a dark segment. Have her come out and address the crowd. Just talk to the crowd. The crowd would have got behind her, got amped up, and then you could have started the show. Had Lillian sing the national anthem, do your little 9/11 tribute video package, and then we're off to the races. I don't know, what did they think it was going to be a downer to do something like that? We're New Yorkers. That kind of shit don't down us. We would have been supportive of one of our own. That's what we do in New York. But this wasn't important to them. This wasn't an important story for them. This is the kind of thing that should have been maybe even the centerpiece of this show. But no. And it's unfortunate. It's absolutely unfortunate that they did that. And that leads me into talking more about the dark matches. Let's go over what I had to see last night. Rhea versus Charlotte, as I said. It was a good match. I was okay with it until we really understood that Zelina wasn't part of the show. And it was just stupid to me to erase her from the card. But WWE needed an excuse for Charlotte to be able to wrestle at Madison Square Garden, you know, because it wouldn't be special unless Charlotte was there. Jesus Christ. Nobody asked for that. I didn't need that. I was actually happy that the WWE's first trip back to New York was a SmackDown taping, because there were certain people that I knew I wasn't going to have to see. I wasn't going to have to see the Viking Raider, Warrior Raider Raiders. I wasn't going to have to see Nikki Ash ass, superhero ass. I wasn't going to have to see Charlotte Flair and Rhea Ripley. Like, I was happy about this. Yeah, I knew I still had to deal with, like, Boogs and Carmella and Ziggler and like, some of those guys. But you gotta pick your poisons, right? And I would much rather deal with 2 hours of SmackDown's garbage than 3 hours of Raw's garbage. But the WWE likes to stick it to me, you know? That's what they do. So I had to sit through Rhea versus Charlotte. And I wasn't happy. But you know who was happy? Baron Corbin. I wasn't happy at all. This fucking guy, he's Happy Corbin now. Alright? Now let me just set the stage for you a little bit better here. I had just gone through 2 hours of SmackDown. We went from the opening segment to the main event without a Happy Corbin sighting anywhere. And you know what? I didn't even realize it until his stupid fucking music hit. And I'm like, what's this Las Vegas garbage music I'm listening to? And then out comes this happy moron with his stupid derby hat on, and he's all, you know, with his dumb outfits, and he's coming out and he's all happy. Happy. You know who's not happy? I wasn't happy. And Happy Corbin from SmackDown comes out, and he ends up facing Drew McIntyre. Drew McIntyre was the focus of the first half of the dark main event. A guy from Monday Night Raw. Once again, instead of doing the Zelina Vega segment, we needed to have an excuse for Drew to wrestle in Madison Square Garden because, you know, Drew. You know, I'm surprised he didn't come out and give us a fucking history lesson before he beat the shit out of Happy Corbin. Happy was very happy to get himself disqualified by slapping Drew McIntyre with a steel chair outside. This was followed up by a Claymore kick right to his happy face by Drew McIntyre, which let the crowd pop and made the segment go off with everybody being happy. This led us to the Bloodline coming out in a 6-man special dark main event. And out come the Mysterios, and I'm just like, blah, who gives a shit? I mean, they just had Roman Reigns and the Demon Finn Balor in the middle of the ring. And then I had to watch Happy Corbin and Drew McIntyre, and now you're giving me the Mysterios versus the Usos with Roman. And unless you're a dumbass, or you were living under a rock, or you didn't have eyes, you knew John Cena was going to be the 6th man. He did pop Madison Square Garden, popped huge for John Cena, but the more things change, the more they stay the same. We are New York City, and the Let's Go Cena sucks thing was in full effect during this matchup. Even though I respect and enjoy John Cena now more than ever, I was firmly and completely on the John Cena sucks side only because of 2 reasons. One, I'm so tired of Tiny Dad and the giant baby man son Mysterio duo. I want it to end so bad. I really, really do. I don't want to see it anymore. And two, because the bloodline in Roman Reigns is, as though it's kind of getting a little bit stale, it's still the best thing going on SmackDown, especially when you factor in the whole Brock Lesnar thing. I talked about on the SmackDown review that I'm not too happy with them bringing back Demon Finn Balor only for him to be like a stepping stone for Roman to get to Viking Brock Lesnar. Seems a little passé, but it is the WWE's MO doing that kind of shit, right? So don't get too excited for the Demon. He's just going to get flattened by the Tribal Chief as he heads and sets his sights on the Beast later on down the road. Hopefully sooner than later. Excuse me. We're live and I'm choking on my own enthusiasm. Let's take a sip of the greatest soda in the world. This is not the paid sponsor, by the way. The sponsor, of course, is BarkBox. BarkBox.com/SledgehammerTV to get your dog an awesome box full of goodies right now. And you get a free box on me if you use that link. So go do that when we're done with the show. But let me take a sip of my favorite soda in the world, Diet Dr. Pepper. If you're watching Diet Dr. Pepper, send me some stuff. I'd be happy to sponsor you guys. I doubt you are, but I'm putting it out there. And you just helped me not choke to death. So there you go. Positive reinforcement, positive advertisements, even for those people who don't pay me to do so, which probably is a stupid thing for me to do. Anyway, let's go on. I want to talk about one more thing about this six-man tag. It had your traditional ending, right? John Cena F5s everyone, gets the pin on one of the Usos, gets the win for his team. But my favorite thing about this match is something that even if they put it on TV, you guys would not know about. And that's because there was a guy in the section behind me who absolutely hates Dominic Mysterio. You know how I know? Because he kept screaming it. He kept screaming it. If you happen to be watching this show right now, and you know, and you were at Madison Square Garden last night too, and you know what I'm talking about, feel free to talk about it and back me up on this, because this one guy was going apeshit about just how much he hated Dominic Mysterio. Just screaming from the top of his lungs, "Dominic, I hate you!" And then he would very nicely be like, "I love you, Dad, but I fucking hate you." And he kept going on and on and on. And this guy was having a grand old time because Dominic was doing most of the heavy lifting in this matchup. He was getting his ass beat, worked his ass off to get his way to that hot tag. But the whole time, this guy was having a grand old time just because Giant Baby Manson was getting his ass whipped 19 ways from Sunday. And it was fantastic. The guy had me in stitches. It would go quiet for about maybe 10 seconds and then suddenly, "Dominic, I hate you!" Wrestling fans are fucking awesome. And some of those things are moments you'll never forget. And now you won't forget it either because I'm telling you about it. And if I'm telling you about it, that means it was pretty damn good. All in all, I had a very decent time at the show. That doesn't mean they did a great job. Let's calm things down just a little bit. Most of this stuff we're seeing from at least this week's episode of SmackDown is only happening because we were in Madison Square Garden and they had to make the show feel special, and because the WWE is trying to counter AEW's momentum. And they want to show the world that they still have what it takes to do a big show. And as I said, while we had the return of Brock Lesnar to SmackDown, we had the return of the Demon, we had a great Edge versus Seth Rollins matchup, we had the Becky Bianca contract signing. It was a solid show, but it wasn't like the greatest show they've ever put together. Let's be honest. When you're comparing it to the recent stuff that we've been getting, like, everything's been shit. So as somebody said very accurately in the comments section of the SmackDown review, you know, the bar on these shows are so low that you just have to give us like this much on a WWE show And majority of the marks and all the blue checks and all the, fanboys on social media, they all say, oh, it's the greatest show. They put on the best show ever. Best show that they've had in years. Let's calm down. Let's not go that crazy. You know what was kind of crazy is the fact that I am just not really lucky enough when I buy tickets to be sat next to fans that are worth sitting next to. Do you know what I mean when I say that? I'm trying to do this and not be mean, because I don't know these people that were sitting around me. I'm glad I don't know them. I don't want to know them. And it's nothing personal or anything. It's just we're people that do not mesh. You see, when I got there and I found my seat, there was a very nice young couple in the 2 seats at the front of the aisle, and my seat was the 3rd seat in the aisle. I asked them to pass. They very nicely did. I sat next to them. They seemed absolutely fine. Right? The guy seemed like if I talked to him, we probably would have got along. Seemed kind of cool. Maybe a little young, because, I'm in my early 40s. These guys looked like they were in their late 20s, early 30s, but who knows anymore. And, they were fine, but they were not like your usual rowdy, raucous, fun-having New York kind of fan, in my opinion. She was quite upset at the sign down in front having words being misspelled. And there was maybe a little more emotion for that than there was for the wrestling that was going on from this particular young lady. But she was fine. She didn't bother me at all. The guy to my right, however, of course he had to be an overweight guy, right? He kind of looked like Xavier Woods, but if Xavier Woods ate Big E. All right, he was a big guy. He comes down the aisle, and there were a few empty seats to my right. And as he's passing me, I'm praying to the wrestling gods. I'm asking every spirit in the world that is with me at that moment, please, God, and whoever's listening, do not let this Big Woods sit down next to me, because I would like to remain as comfortable as I am right now for the entirety of the show. I had a big sign, I just knew that it was going to affect my night in a slightly negative way. But of course, he shimmies on past me and says, "Oh, I'm right here," and sits down next to me. Now I have my keys and my wallet and my phone in my pocket, and now my pocket is rubbing up against this guy. And when you're annoying somebody, if you've ever sat on public transportation or you've ever been in an arena or a stadium, you don't have much elbow room or room for your legs, and we're now like bumping into each other, and I'm being self-conscious about it. Now I'm trying not to, and then I move my stuff from this pocket to the other pocket, because the young lady over here was quite slender, and I knew if I had my stuff in my pocket, it wasn't going to be anywhere near her thigh. But this guy's thigh was practically on top of my thigh, and it was uncomfortable all around. The one thing I could be grateful for was the fact that at least he didn't have body odor or anything like that. He was very quiet. In fact, he was so quiet that he didn't really say much of anything. He would get up from his seat, but I don't remember hearing anything coming out of his mouth. He sat there and took pictures all night long and seemed to have a good time, I would assume. But these type of people, while there are nothing wrong with them, are just not the type of people that I would like to be around when I'm watching professional wrestling. It was a trying evening. And I'm being nice about it, because God forbid any of these people happen across this show and listen to me. I'm not trying to be offensive. That's not what we do here. I'm just telling you how it is. Alright, have you ever been to the movies or to a rock and roll show or a comedy show or anywhere where you have to be sat next to complete and total strangers and have somebody that's 2 or 3 times bigger than you sit next to you in a seat that is not made for somebody that large? It's going to have an adverse effect on whatever it is you're doing. Was that over the line? Am I overboard? I don't think so. This is my show. I can say what I want. But that in a nutshell describes last night's SmackDown. It was fun. It was slightly uncomfortable, but it was a fun show. We did okay. It's not safe from a poop hammer. Poop hammer gets dropped on SmackDown, mainly and mostly because of that 10-man tag team match. Talk about a waste of time. Talk about wasting time. I talked about this a little bit earlier as well, but I want to bring light to it again to anybody that missed the SmackDown review. Do you guys realize that when you go live to a WWE event and they go to commercial, everybody freezes? It's hysterical. It's like we're a bunch of kids in elementary school playing freeze tag. Everybody except the crowd, because they don't let us in on the joke. You would think they would tell us before the show, when the lights go out and we do this, everybody freeze! So that when the cameras come back, we could all be, consistent at the very least. They do this thing during the show, which on TV, as we've been watching, especially during the pandemic era, while they were in the Thunderdome, they did this a lot, where they would have somebody come out to the ring for their segment and then not only go to commercial but come back and then shoot to some other segment or a backstage incident, or have Cole or whoever's on commentary talk about something else before they actually get back to the match. And I always was under the impression that everything just kept moving, that maybe the superstar got on the mic, maybe interacted with the crowd a little bit, had a little bit of fun in between commercial breaks, but no, the lights go out and everybody freeze! It was really funny in the case of the 10-man match, because of course they took the commercial break in the middle of the Intercontinental Champion King Nakamura's entrance with boobs. And they were coming out, and the crowd, we were all into it, man. And then the lights went out, and we all had a fucking freeze. We didn't know. And everybody else did. Anyone who was in the ring froze in place. Shinsuke and Boogs didn't take another step. And it was just very awkward. And then when it finally kicked back in, we didn't get any warning. You'd think they'd say, okay guys, countdown, 3, 2, 1. Cheer, produce the show. Direct the crowd a little bit. Don't tell us what to say, but at least let us know when we're coming back live. This fucking company is all over the place in every single department, no matter what we're talking about. Holy shit. Well, that's enough rambling on. I've been talking. Let's see what you guys have been talking about. Let's check out the chat. Somebody's been busy saying inappropriate words, which is why I haven't shown nor hid any of these. David Filth, true to his name, Brother David, really always very hype, very happy, very supportive of the channel. But as you can see here, he curses a lot, which is why, he gets held for review. But you can see him here because you're looking at him through my screen. If you don't see him in the chat on your own and you see him in my screen, he's not a troll and he's not an asshole. He's just a super fan who likes the green stuff like me and likes to drop a few F-bombs here and there, and that's perfectly all right. with me. What are we talking about here? Let's go. I'm going to go from this screen. Let me pull this over here so I can see better. All right. Sister Tara, welcome to the show. Thank you for showing up tonight. My buddy FU, who's next, he's always here. Loyal, and I love you so much. Kane the bad guy, what's up, brother? Brother David as well. Let's get this chat popping. I don't know how many people we even have watching this show right now. I don't have that screen up. I don't like getting anything in the way to make anything lag or anything. But if you guys got any questions, anything you want to say, anything you want to talk about, shoot it into the chat right now. Super chat it if you like, if you want to help support the channel in other ways besides going to barkbox.com/sledgehammertv right now. Well, not right now. Go later. Don't go now. Now you're sitting here watching me. The 10-man tag match was barely even a blow-off match, FU. There was nothing about that. It was just your typical fucking WWE garbage match, really. You had all these teams in there. Everybody hit their finish or their signature move until the end happened. Whoop-de-doo. Same shit. Different day. Same WWE. Alright, well, maybe we should just call it a night. We'll wrap it up here tonight on this live stream. Kind of quiet. People are probably... Well, if you're in New York, who knows what you're doing tonight. Maybe you're home grieving. Maybe you're out celebrating. Maybe you're on YouTube like me. In which case you're probably not watching. Nah, that was a stupid thing to say. Anyway, thank you guys all for coming out. If you missed the SmackDown review that went up earlier today, I will link it in the annotations after this video finishes the stream. If you missed the beginning of the show, don't forget to go back and check it out, as we just spent the last hour talking about some really cool stuff. My personal history with Madison Square Garden, everything that happened last night at Madison Square Garden that you guys didn't see, and the Zelina Vega 9/11 controversy deal that, you know, maybe we're making a little bit bigger deal of it than we should, but how disrespectful was that? If your company, if you were an employee and your company did something along these lines to you, how would you feel? My feelings are for Zelina Vega, and I hope that she's okay with all of it. You know, like, for the end of the day, it only matters how she feels. And we seen on Twitter that she was slighted, but, you know, she'll be back at work next week, so can't be too mad about it if she's not. No unexpected announcements. There's going to be another event in December, sometime around the holiday at Madison Square Garden. Not a Raw or a pay-per-view or anything, just, you know, they usually come around for a holiday tour every once in a while. They may do something special elsewhere besides Madison Square Garden. I haven't heard. You know, the UBS Arena's opening up. AEW is about to christen that in December, I think. And then, of course, we have the Nassau Coliseum that everybody's going to come back to. The Barclays Center, WWE's second headquarters in New York. So, I mean, there might be some cool shit popping up. Last thing I did at the Barclays Center was NXT TakeOver 4, and I will never go back to another NXT show. So unless... I shouldn't say that. I mean, from what we know right now, that's one thing we haven't talked about that we could touch upon a little bit before we sign off, is NXT, the new NXT. It's supposed to be debuting this week. I'm not happy about it. Nobody's happy about it. But, you know what? The WWE could take the situation that they're in and really turn it around into something that would benefit even Monday Night Raw. But you know what? I'm going to save that. And we're going to talk about that next Saturday on Sledgehammer Saturday Night. Saturday Night Sledgehammer. Whichever way you like to call it, I don't care. Just make sure that your Saturday nights from now on are here, hanging with Sledge, talking pro wrestling, and so much more. I don't like the new NXT logo. Looks like dog shit. I'm very fearful of the future being under the guiding hands of Pritchard and McMahon, who have ruined the two best wrestling shows on the planet before. So it wouldn't be a surprise to me for them to ruin NXT, which was WWE's most recent best wrestling show on the planet. They've already got quite a head start at doing so. So I'm going to tell you next week how we can save Monday Night Raw. It's a real simple idea. It could work with a couple of different people, a couple of different ways. And throughout the week, I want you guys to get your thoughts up. How would you save Monday Night Raw? Let me know in the comments down below. If it's good enough, maybe I'll feature your idea on next week's Saturday Night Sledgehammer. I'm Nick Nightmare. Thank you guys for hanging out with me on this late night on the East Coast here Saturday, wherever it is that you're joining us. Thank you so much for being a Sledgehead of Sledge Nation. If you're new around these parts and you're watching us still after 56 minutes, then you should be a subscriber. So hit that subscribe button to make sure that you don't miss a video every time we drop one, because you never know when Sledgehammer TV just might decide to go live or to drop something special for his beautiful, ever-loving fan base of the Sledgeheads of Sledge Nation. Thank you once again for being here. My name is Nick Nightmare. This is the team. Thor the Sledgehammer, the official Sledgehammer of the Sledgehammer Wrestling Show. His tag team partner, the World Heavyweight Champion of all the microphones in all the world, Mr. Blue, the Snowball, the most important member of the team, as always, each and every one of you. Don't forget to check out our sponsor, barkbox.com/sledgehammertv. Do all the YouTube things that you got to do while you're down there. Like, share, and subscribe. And I will see you guys Monday night as we bring the hammer down on Monday Night Raw, when we point out everything wrong with Monday Night Raw. I guess tomorrow, right? Is it Sunday yet? Yeah, I think it's Sunday. We'll do tomorrow night. I'll talk to you guys then after I go through my lobotomy, which is 3 hours of Monday Night Raw. Let me know if you liked the show tonight. Let me know if you liked the format, if we should continue doing this or not. I love you guys so much. Have a great night, and I'll see you Monday. Cheers.